real quick and then we'll get started. I want to thank everyone for being here this morning. Episode 1, excited. Got a great talk with Sean Nevels from Shape America on advocacy and implementing some of those ideas into our schools and classrooms. I want to get some of the housekeeping stuff out of the way first. Again, thanks for being here. I know there's a ton of professional development going on right now. We're doing our best to move in a direction for what's being offered is really relevant to our challenges in education, but also focusing on how to implement some of those resources. We're getting lots of resources out there right now, and really trying to focus some of these sessions on implementation of some of those ideas, and really trying to limit just the plethora of resources that have been thrown at you, and really focusing on how to use those resources, how to use those ideas. Big part of providing these PDs is really building that advocacy, which is why I think it was a great idea to have this as the first one, is where, taking these learning opportunities to really advocate for ourselves in this pandemic, and then moving forward from that. There's a few websites that I want to bring to everybody's attention while we're going over this real quick, because, as advocates, it's good to have that network of educators and really that back what we do and are part of that every day. First one, shameless plug for myself, the DESI website is a great website of resources, grade level education standards. It's an awesome place. There's new stuff posted all the time, almost too much, I feel sometimes. And I'm going to post all these websites underneath. Second is MoShape. If you guys are not members of MoShape, you need to be. It's a great resource of networking and lots of PD opportunities. And if you're a health educator, physical educator, any kind of advocate in our field in the state, that is a must be for membership. I know membership is free. It's a great resource to be in there and be a part of that. Third, Shape America. Sean Nevels, who is my former position now with Shape America. If you're in health education, physical education, and you're not perusing Shape America's website constantly, you're missing out on great stuff. They are definitely the gold standard of what we do in our field, and have that international reach of resource and PD and instructional materials, and it's just really good stuff. And if you're not spending time on Shape America, checking out what they have, there's resources available that I think everyone needs to know about. And so I really hope that all of you guys go check those out. Okay, today we got Sean Nevels, COVID-19 project manager for Shape America, formerly director of HPE at DESI. We are very fortunate to have him. I would hope that many of you have already seen Sean on some presentations and webinars. He's out there doing podcasts and webinars, and he's a really talented person to have with us, especially talking about advocacy. I'll be checking the chat box for questions, comments, and we'll kind of have some breaks in between. At the end, near the end of this, I will be posting a link for evaluation. Evaluating these is really necessary for us to make sure that we're providing a PD that is actually being wanted, make sure we're doing a good job, and given the resources that we want to get. Love that feedback, and so please do fill out that evaluation. It really does help us. Without further ado, Sean, I would love for you to take it away, and we'll get going.
All right, thank you, Zach. And you did the shameless plug for the DESI website. I'm gonna take some credit for that one too, because it definitely took some reworking in my short time with DESI. But thank you all for being on. Good morning to you. I am with Shape America. Once again, my name is Sean Nevels. I'm with Shape America, the national organization, Society of Health and Physical Educators. We serve over 200,000 health and physical educators in the field, from K-12, pre-K, all the way up to higher education. So yeah, but before that, I was Missouri's Director of Health and Physical Education. I did that for a very, very short time. I did it from December 2019 till July. And then the pandemic happened and took over, and I was fortunate to get this role with Shape America as their CDC COVID-19 project director. And as you can also see on that screen, yes, I host a podcast for Shape America. They had it before. I just kind of reintegrated myself into it as the host, and we've really taken off with a lot of great episodes. So please check that out. I'll drop that link in there when I'm done speaking. Before Desi, I was a middle school administrator for a very short time. Brad Brummel here can tell you about that maybe. But even before that, my background truly is a health teacher, a physical education teacher, and a coach. I was an adaptive PE teacher in Columbia Public Schools and coached football there. Went over to Springfield Public Schools, became a head football coach, and still did PE, still did physical education for high school. I worked in Springfield Public Schools with Brad Brummel and, did curriculum work with him. At the district level, then the state level. I was a wellness liaison in the district. I was an equity and access liaison. So a lot of different things leading to where I am today with Shape America. So yeah, and real quick, as Zach is putting in some of those resources, if you can put your name, your first and last name, whatever grade level you teach, and your district, that would be great. So we all know who's here, who's who, and who's teaching what. All right, so going back, that previous slide. So today is about advocacy and implementation. And first off, I have to give it to Zach because he's willing, as Director of Health and Physical Education, to use that word advocacy. And we'll kind of, briefly kind of touch on that. But our objectives for today are to discuss the Every Student Succeeds Act and how it impacts health and physical education. We'll briefly discuss the CSPAP, the Comprehensive School Physical Activity Program, and introduce the audience to ways to promote their health and physical education programs. Now, going back to Zach and the advocacy part of this conversation in our talk today is, when I was with Desi, my short time with Desi, advocacy almost seemed to be its own swear word, or advocate, but ultimately what we'll talk about is what you do every day. As teachers, as educators, you're always doing it whether you know it or not, whether you've made a deep commitment to it, or you just do it in your teacher practices. But advocacy, it's a part of what we do, especially during this time where, our world is changing, our state of education is changing. How does health and physical education now align with what the new normal is going to be when the pandemic is over? A lot of what I'll address today is a part of our Shape America page. So this particularly is our Shape America advocacy page. So you can go to that after we're done talking, look at some of the stuff that is there, ways you can do it in your area and whatnot. But once again, I will kind of cover some of the things from our Shape Advocacy page. So once again, going back to advocate and who you are and how you are. When we think about advocacy and we think about some sort of negative connotation of advocacy, a lot of times people think of advocacy in terms of this image here. And I am a person of profound images, so I apologize ahead of time if you feel a certain way when you see this. But people think of advocacy in this extreme term, which is protest, and to even the worst extent, riots and things like that. They see that and they think that's what an advocate is, but not necessarily. So real quick, if we take a definition of advocacy, Merriam-Webster online always helps. You can break it down, the noun of it, into a couple specific directions. It can be one who pleads the cause of another. Well, we're not lawyers. One who defends or maintains a cause or proposal. Kind of getting there, but I like this third definition. That's one who supports or promotes the interest of a cause or a group. Now, we all, especially as educators, fall more in line with that third one. We are supporters and we promote the interests of a cause and group. We are advocates ultimately of students. And more importantly, the well-being and health of our students, right? That's what we are. So we are advocates in that realm. And then we advocate, the act, the verb of advocating. We advocate for healthy practices. We advocate for the social emotional well-being of our students. We advocate for a healthy school environment. We advocate for students to want to be active outside of our classroom and regular school hours, right? So we are advocates in that, right? So, that kind of frames what you are and what this conversation is for you as advocates in your school environment. So once again, you take that and you break it down into the world we live in now in this new time of COVID. There are advocates in healthcare. You have advocates in food service. Once again, if you're thinking about essential workers and things like that. And then also you have advocates in health and physical education. And one of the biggest state advocates right now, fortunately, is the 2021 Missouri Teacher of the Year, Darion Cockrell. I'll plug him, and I'll also plug the podcast again because he was on the podcast. He has reached not only state level attention, but on the national stage, including Good Morning America and things like that. So Darion Cockrell is one of our biggest advocates in the state, and he's still a classroom teacher. Somehow he manages to do it. I text him every once in a while just to check on him, see if he's doing okay, and hanging in there, and he's doing fine. So, we are all advocates and truly essential workers, especially because we're dealing with the livelihoods of our students, right? So our advocates. So now let's talk about the Every Student Succeeds Act of 2015. So now that you understand that you're an advocate, we have to now frame what our field is, health and physical education, on a broader sense, the national sense and why it matters. So we'll hop to the Every Student Succeeds Act of 2015 from the Obama administration and talk about some of the things in that, right? We know ultimately, and I can talk about it, day and night, about ESSA. First off, it replaced the No Child Left Behind Act of 2002, right, which gave us content standard, content subjects and things like that, our core subjects where health and physical education didn't fall in line. And also ESSA recertified the ESEA, I believe, ESEA. I want to make sure I say that right, of 1965. So, it's great. It's here, it's 2015. But once again, how does health and physical education fall in line with this all, right? So here we go. School health and physical education are identified as a part of a student's well-rounded education. This term replaces the core academic subjects from previous versions of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act and No Child Left Behind. So you take ESSA, you get rid of core subjects, right? Your math, science, social studies, ELA, and now you create well-rounded education and well-rounded subjects. Well, guess what? Health and physical education fall in line now, according to ESSA, with the well-rounded education. And because of that, we are now eligible for federal funding. So it's expanded our opportunity to grow our health and physical education programs, particularly when you talk about that funding. Three big major aspects, and one is Title I funding, supporting the schools and districts with high population of low-income students and families. We know a lot of that work is, yes, it's part of our health and physical education programs, but also providing, students with free breakfast, lunch, after school snacks, take-home snacks, especially during the holiday seasons when a lot of families don't have access to those things. So, that's a part of funding we can access to. Title II funding, which is assistance for professional development for school staff. Now, I know, especially in this COVID era, that may have taken a little bit of a hit, but there's still opportunities available, especially when you're talking about professional development. Once again, thank you to DESE for allowing these free sessions, but, especially on the SHAPE level, something national, if you're able to get funding for the national convention, especially now that it's virtual, a little less travel, but being able to get well-rounded, in the terms of a well-rounded student, but well-rounded professional development opportunities as an educator. And then lastly, Title IV funding, which is a big part of where we fall in line with ESSA, and that's activities to support safe and healthy students. Now, entertain me here for a while as I talk a little bit more about Title IV, because I kind of became a little bit of a nerd on this one when I went down the line, and you'll kind of see where I'm going with this. But ESSA and then Title IV Part A, this is particularly, once again, if you're thinking about, we were kind of lost in the shuffle from a previous administration when it came to No Child Left Behind. Well, we know if we kind of go down the line here, I just said Title IV, Section 4108. Once again, I'm becoming a nerd. Activities to support safe and healthy students. Then you go to that subsection 5, may include, among others, programs and activities. C, programs or activities that, 2, support a healthy, active lifestyle, including nutritional education and regular structured physical education activities and programs that may address chronic disease management with instruction led by school nurses, nurse practitioners, or appropriate specialists or professionals to help maintain the well-being of students. And fortunately, according to our MSIP standards in Missouri are, particularly physical education programs, have to be taught by certified teachers, physical education teachers, right? So, you know, breaking down that ESSA and where health and physical education falls in line and why it's a game changer. You look all the way down the line, you see that language that says we matter, that health and physical education are a part of a well-rounded student. Once again, that is probably your strongest piece of advocacy right there as you do your work on a daily basis and as you grow as an educator in time, and, you know, the advocacy efforts you do in your district and the state, right? So there you go. All right. So that's the big, you know, that's our blanket right now. ESSA is, you know, is what covers us and protects our field, right? So let's break that down now into kind of some of the implementing factors, right? The deliverables, what you can start to do within your school and your district. And I always start with the WISC model, right? We know, we hear a lot now about whole child and whatnot. Well, according to the CDC, in this framework, health and physical education are the foundation of the whole child. When you then put in the rest of those other 8 components: nutrition, health services, counseling, social emotional climate, physical environment, employee wellness, family engagement, community involvement, all that coordinates your policies, practices, and procedures, and you get that whole child and those five key elements we want from our students once they graduate, right, and go into their lives. And that's to be healthy, safe, engaged, supported, challenged in the school environment to become better people. I break that down once again, kind of defining how that works in the WISC model, particularly health and physical education, and why it's important and why the CDC recognizes and why there's funding available. That's why I have my position as the CDC project director, is because they recognize the importance of health and physical education. Well, physical education, physical activity, we know are associated with improved academic achievement, better concentration, attention, classroom behavior, which then turns into those deliverables that your administrators see. Once again, for a short time as administrator, I looked at numbers. So higher achievement and test scores, right? Higher math scores, higher all that MAP scores, all that good stuff, higher GPAs and lower dropout rates. And then health education speaks to particularly health literacy and, you know, giving them those skills-based opportunities to impact not just the academic outcomes, but the health outcomes that lead to better communities, better workforce, better human beings, right? So, now, narrowing it once again, working our way to those deliverables and what you can be implementing within your classroom. So now let's take the WISC model and let's hone in on the physical education piece and the CSPAT model, the Comprehensive School Physical Activity Program, And according to here, the SHAPE definition, it's a multi-component approach by which school districts and schools use all opportunities for students to be physically active, meet the nationally recommended 60 minutes of physical activity each day, and develop the knowledge, skills, and confidence to be physically active for a lifetime. Now, the one question I could have asked everybody in the room here in the virtual space is, how often do you see your students? Now, that could have been an absolute mixed bag, especially now some of you may be in person, some of you may be virtual. So matter of fact, let's take that time real quick, and I have your names and I have your schools. Go ahead and type in your learning model, particularly for your health and physical education class. What is the learning model? Is it in person? Is it hybrid? Or is it full virtual? So quick sec, I sip tea. You guys put that in there. Thank you so much. We're on it. The quick responses means we're engaged. So thank you so much for all that.
I'm waiting to get a 33%, 33%, 33% split of hybrid, in-person, and distance.
and then one of our great people here, a little bit of all. Okay, thank you, sir. A little bit of all, which is good. Currently virtual, transition to January. And you know, that's a whole different conversation, Corey, when the transition happens. So once again, start thinking about reentry considerations when you get to that transition, because I know it's going a lot of different ways. You know, obviously you have a third that are going to be in the model that they're currently in. A third are going to go from in-person to virtual, and another third may go from virtual to in-person. Now, I don't know that for sure. I'm just saying that to say, hey, make sure now that we're getting toward the end of your semester, quarter, school year, school calendar year, that you're looking towards now, what is it going to look like again in January? Because, you know, it's the next reopening or back to school part 2, whatever you want to call it. All right, so you've got your CSPAP model, so we'll kind of move it forward then to some of the quick definitions on what all those 5 components are. And then obviously we know what physical education is, right? It's that academic subject. I love it says academic subject, right? Which is standards-based, all right? Standards-based instruction is part of a well-rounded education. All those things we just learned and we love now, right? Standards-based, well-rounded education, because we're a part of that. But you know what's involved: physical activity, physical fitness, motor skills, all that, physical literacy, physical comprehension, right? Physical competence. All right, so physical activity during school. Now, let's not say they're not in your class, but what things are going on outside of your class? You know, those classroom activities, brain breaks, stretching, jumping, especially in this, if you're virtual, full virtual, are teachers allowing activity breaks for the class? Are they doing something creative? Are they just saying, okay, you can turn off your camera, do whatever? That's kind of a chance right there to kind of insert some activities for a class, or, you know, just some ideas for teachers to use for their virtual classes. Before and after school provides those opportunities for students to be physically active and practice what they have learned in physical education class. So, you know, maybe especially in the elementary environment, maybe you're doing a walking club or a yoga club. We had that in the middle school I taught at. And then after school, you know, once again, walking club, you know, your sports, your extracurricular activities, things like that. But also think about, you know, as we kind of move forward with this, think about other groups that may be involved. So maybe in your district, there's, you know, your county parks and recreation comes in before and after school. You know, think about partnering with them and collaborating with them to create a broader program. Staff involvement. Once again, I told you I was a wellness liaison at the high school I taught at in Springfield Public Schools. Well, I always gave out, I sent, you know, kind of emails on things people can do. We created these challenges, you know, the weight loss challenge, but how can you involve staff, not just health and physical education, but your administrators, other classroom teachers in this process, in creating an atmosphere of health and well-being? And then you have your family engagement, right? So you've done everything right in the matter of your span and time in the classroom, and you want to really reinforce that into the community. And that means, you know, once again, you're getting parents involved, school staff involved, community members, local businesses, health clubs, your health department, to work together to increase physical activity opportunities before, during, and after school day. Once again, community organizations can establish shared agreements with schools and whatnot to, you know, to allow them to use school facilities for physical activity opportunities or events. Once again, think about your parks and recs and things like that. I was just going to say, once again, I'm in this position because I've done a lot. I have kind of this broad range of experience. I'm personally involved in, I'm involved in our county's, our mayor's council for physical fitness and health. So, you know, not everybody's that, but once again, in the small doses and the time that you have, what can you do to implement things or, you know, spread the message outside of your school to families, to community members? All right, so kind of gave you the framework now. So we have the framework of the CSPAP model in those 5 sections and areas. So how do you develop, implement, and evaluate CSPAP, right? And why are we talking about the program? Well, once again, before you are advocates, you're essential workers in my eyes, but for sure you're advocates. So before you can advocate, you have to create this big program, right? Or you have to start thinking about the long term of your physical activity program and what it can do and particularly what it means. All right. So now we're developing the CSPAP model, right? So establish your team, committee, a designated physical activity leader. Guess what? I see 13 physical activity leaders. Congratulations. You all are getting that knowledge, right? But you need a team around you because nobody can do this job alone, right? So, you know, is it other health and physical education teachers in your building or in your district? Get another classroom teacher involved. Get that science teacher involved. Get your arts teacher. They are probably our biggest friends, and we don't even know it as the art teacher because we're in the same area, the same boat when it comes to a lot of this stuff and advocating, particularly for our field of education. But get some parents involved, PTA members, get your community involved, local business. Once again, think about your Parks and Rec people, things like that. So who can you create around this work? Conduct an assessment of existing physical activity opportunities. Start with your curriculum. Start with what you do in your class. Then think about the broader scope. Are we keeping kids physically active outside of PE? Because we want to meet those 60 minutes a day. So just think about the opportunities that are available and where ways you can fit inside. If you don't have that before school program, maybe you can create a before or after school program to keep kids physically active and continue to advocate for what you do in the well-being of students. Create that vision statement, goals, objectives for your CSPAP program, right? So, what do you hope to, what is it there? Why is it there? What do you hope to gain? Obviously the betterment of students, but what does that look like? Break those down to objectives, kind of like the objectives of today's talk. Define the intended outcomes or specific changes that are direct results of program implementation. So now you're assessing and you're keeping track of what's going on and what's happening. How's it working? How can it be better? Where can it improve? Where are the areas of success? Identify and plan the activities for your CSPAP program. So once again, you found those gaps. You're defining the outcomes that you want. What does success look like? And then start planning, start once again working with your physical education curriculum. What needs to be in there to further promote physical well-being, health literacy, physical literacy outside of classroom time. You've got who's involved, how can they help? What can people bring to the table? What can you plan around that, and what kind of processes can you create around that? Implement it, you've got it now. We've talked, we've gotten through steps 1 through 5. We're all in now. We know what we're doing. We know how we're doing it. We know what we want to accomplish in doing it, right? And then last, you evaluate. Just like everything, we evaluate our curriculum. We evaluate ourselves on a day-to-day basis. We're reflective practitioners. Well, with your program, be that reflective practitioner, right? All right. So that was the long term, the long term of all this in creating the CSPAP program. But what small steps can you do in just promoting your health and physical education program if that's where you are right now? I just want to, shine the things that I do on a daily basis because I feel like I'm not recognized. Well, let's give you just three tidbit steps to do that. And it starts with communicating, right? Communicate. All right. We can't be upset with ourselves and not being recognized if we're not sharing what we're doing, right? You have to share what you are doing. How are you going to communicate your message? I say our message because I'm a health and physical educator. I'll always be an educator by trade, right? So how are you going to communicate our message, right? How are you going to communicate not just what you're doing, but why you're doing it, why it's important, right? So that gets us to number 2. Why is this information relevant? So you sounded that alarm. Hey, I'm doing great work. Well, why? Why is that important? We'll get to that here in a bit. But yes, you've got their attention. So why is what you're doing relevant? And then resources. So you sounded the alarm. You told them why what you do is important because we're part of well-rounded education. We're trying to implement healthy lifestyles in students for a lifetime of well-being, right? Well then, okay, what can you give them to take away? What are those tangible things outside of the classroom that you're giving them to get to that 60 minutes a day, right? And to further promote your work. So starting with communication, right? Everybody does it differently. There's no one way to advocate. There's no one way to promote what you do. I just broke it down to 3 easy steps to make it simple and, practical for the environment that you're teaching in because I was there, right? So communicate. You can use Facebook. We're in the social media time now, right? We're in this virtual environment because of a pandemic. So use Facebook. Not necessarily your own, but does your district have one? Does your school have a Facebook account that you can, throw some information at them every once in a while? Same with Twitter. I like the little mask there on our Twitter guy. But Twitter is just that quick and easy way. It's also awesome to share your activities and lessons through this whole national and global community of health and physical education. Instagram, that's kind of a slowly working thing in some areas, but Instagram is one of the highest, trafficked, I can't say that word, but highest used social media platforms for the demographic that we're teaching now. So I'm an older millennial. So those kids down there, the iGen generation, they're Instagrammers. So, start integrating your way into there. You don't have to necessarily create your own account, but does your school have one? Does your district have one where you can share, the benefits of your program and what you're doing? Or you can just go old school and just go with the old school bulletin board, right? The bulletin board, for if you're in person, you still have one around, use it. If it's a newsletter, the school newsletter, use it. The digital newsletter or the email that goes out once a week, use it. Find those ways, the practical ways, once again, that work for you. There's many ways, probably even some I didn't say here, that can work for everybody to promote your program. Now, Zach talked about MoShape. We are kind of social media nuts. That's probably partly why we're here right now on this conversation. I'd say, just like Zach said, join. It's a free membership, all right? It's being connected to your community. It's learning about things like we're talking about now. It's about learning about how you can become a better practitioner, sharing what you have. If you're already doing some great stuff, share that. But you have to be connected to your community. Right. And on top of that, we're here to amplify your voice. So if you're a MoShape member, we're here to support you. We're here to retweet you. We're here to say, hey, here's what they have going on here. I know, especially on our MoShape Facebook, Brad, who's in our crowd today, our virtual crowd, he shares his school's newsletters, his physical education newsletters that go out to the district, his secondary and elementary. He shares that to the community, to the MoShape community, just to show you that, hey, this is what we're doing, but this is also how I'm communicating to our district. So, always opportunities there, always people willing to help, but be connected. Be connected. All right. Now, if you're not comfortable with just saying, hey, this is what I'm doing, you can also use National Health Observances, and there's always health observances going around. I think the problem is that we always get kind of lost in National Pancake Day or National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day. I know I do. I'm a nut for cookies. So anytime I miss Cookie Day, I go crazy, right? I just run out and get them. But there's always moments to promote healthy practices, right? So American Health Month is in February. You'll hear people talk about wearing red and donating a lot of blood. That's kind of the time to do it. And there goes Brad putting in the chat right there, his e-blast. National Nutrition Month and School Breakfast Week is in March. World Health Day in April. National Physical Education and Sport Week. We can pat ourselves on the back for a whole week in the month of May. Some of the things that I've done, particularly when I came on board with Shape America and the CDC work, is National Childhood Obesity Awareness Month in September when you're coming back to school. And let's see, National Health Literacy Month. And that was back in October. So we had some information around that. And once again, resources that we shared then. So, these are ways, if you don't feel like just bragging about yourself, but these are ways to get yourself in the door. Hey, principal, this month is American Heart Month. We need to really talk about cardiovascular fitness and blah, blah, blah. There you go. You just did it. Information. So once again, you got their attention. What information do you share? Why is what you do relevant? Well, I think I'm preaching to the choir here, but kind of what I said back on the WISC model is that PE equal health equals student success, right? Think about the benefits that it shows there on our Speak Out infograph here. Positive relationships with academic achievement and test scores, right? A healthy brain, an active brain is a smart brain, or a brain that's working, a brain that is moving, a brain that is critically thinking and, seeing these test scores. Think about the positive association with attention, concentration, on-task behavior. We said that already. Encourages a lifetime of healthy habits. That should be the last one. Strategies for reducing childhood obesity. Guess what? Think about September Childhood Obesity Awareness Month. Reduces discipline, referrals. It promotes healthy behavior, not just healthy lifestyle, but healthy behavior, and reduces participation in high-risk behaviors. So once again, preaching to the choir, but this is an infographic. Once again, once you get their attention, you start to communicate how is what you do matters. We know it matters for this. Well, you have to use these moments and opportunities to share that I'm not just talking about my program, I'm talking about the well-being of your child, of your student, of our students. And then you have some more, you have that brain diagram on the bottom right there. That shows the activity of a brain 20 minutes after it walked. Well, I can tell you probably about an hour before I got on, I got my treadmill that you can't see right here. I got 15 minutes in as I listened to NPR, and now I'm moving and active even in my remote working environment. But to kind of, bring it down to the level of what's so important now is the pandemic, right? And COVID-19. And, a lot of you that are in that virtual learning environment don't have those opportunities to see your children. And, kind of something I took here from Washington University in St. Louis is that lack of obesity can cause an increase in 2.4% childhood obesity rate. Right. So, if it's not just saying why it matters, maybe it's some stats and data. Think about district data. Maybe if you're really comprehensive with your fitness assessments, use that information to kind of address some of the need in your district, right? Give them that information, those tangible things they can take and look at and see those numbers they can see to want to help you and support you in creating a physically active school in many different ways. So then resources, you have them, you say, hey, this is important, why it's important. So then you give them the resources and, just kind of some examples here. It was back in October, which was Health Literacy Month. It was also the week of the 19th and 23rd was Bring PE to Your Family Week. And particularly on the Shape America website, we had some resources for that. Activities you can do at home through the Junior MBA, through, some of our other partner organizations. Once again, think about your community and think about that CSPAT model. Who's around you? What stakeholder groups can you be in touch with? If it's the PTA, and give them some resources to share with families, community organizations. Maybe they have some things going on in the community that may matter and promote, healthy living. But what are those resources outside of your program that matters? Once again, October is Health Literacy Month, so we have some resources and things around that with Shape America. And then November 13th was World Kindness Day. And that's addressing the social aspect, the social and emotional aspect of this time, especially once again, if you're virtual, students don't get to have that regular social environment that they normally have. So how can you do that in your virtual space? How you can promote better practices, social interactions, healthy relationships when you are in person or you are in the physical space of another person. How can you do that with physical distancing in mind and that person's safety in mind, right? So, just different ways to address it. And if you see there, Health Moves Minds, which is one of our flagship programs, promotes social emotional well-being. And I know, through some of these conversations, you'll learn more and more about it, but it's a service learning program, once again, that offers resources, lessons, social emotionally based lessons, standards 4 and 5 for physical education that address the well-being of students. So, one of the things to think about, particularly if you're on that subject of social and emotional learning, standards 4 and 5, again, that this is a resource to you, free resource, some of it. We do ask that you register and think about some fundraising opportunities on top of, ESSA funding opportunities to support your programs. Because ultimately, our health is our wealth, right? What we do matters. You're advocates. You do great work. The health of the students matters. It's going to be their wealth throughout their life, but also for yourselves. So that this particular side is for everybody to keep in mind that you're not just taking care of students, that you're taking care of yourself as well through all of this. So yeah, that was really quick. There's my contact information there. If you have any questions, you need more resources, information. I do work for the national organization, but I'm born and raised in, I told you all my different teaching spots, but born and raised in Missouri. I live in Missouri, currently in mid-Missouri and Columbia. So for a lot of you, if you're in person, I try to find reasons to get out the house, but I'm available to you through email, whatever, for whatever you need. If you need help advocating in your area, I'm there for you. So just like Zach and giving you resources and information, I'm here as well. And there are kind of the list of resources we talked about in the chat. Does anybody have any questions? Or actually, Zach, I'll let you take it. If anybody has any questions, feel free to chime in. If not, Zach, it's back to you.
If anybody has any questions, please, feel free to speak up, or you can throw it in the chat box. In the meantime, while we're waiting for questions, I would love to hear from at least a couple people on how you advocate, whether it be in your classroom, in your school, your community. You know, a big part of these PD opportunities is not only listening to, you know, some great resources like Sean come in and present on it, but really seeing locally how some of this is being practiced. How in our schools are we advocating? You know, Brad showed a great, you know, his email blasts, you know, those newsletters are awesome. And, you know, one of the big conversations I have with a lot of people about advocacy is it's a quantity versus quality effect. And I really think that it needs to be both, where, you know, I got in trouble maybe a few months back because I don't have Twitter. And I got reprimanded by some tech folk that I know about, you need to be on Twitter. How are you not on Twitter? How do you advocate for anything if you're not on social? I mean, I have social media, but still on Twitter. But, you know, think about advocating in a sense of its impact, overall impact. So quality has to be there. We have to have that quality of, why are we doing this? This is why we're important. Like Sean said, we know why we are important, but our advocacy is going to go to people who think they still have that gym teacher mentality. We're not physical educators, and we need to advocate for that. And social media is one of the best, especially now in more hybrid virtual environments, where it's, you know, think of that ripple effect. You throw a stone in the pond, and how far does that ripple go? And if you post some stuff outside your classroom, some of your kids may see it. You may have a parent or two see it on a back to school night, but that's about as far as it goes. Where with social media, if we're posting online and we're having that outreach, there's no saying how far that ripple can go. And then if someone reshares that, or, you know, you belong with Mo Shape or Shape America, and you're sharing stuff with your community, and then it catapults from them, and all those 8,000-9,000 members send it outwards from there. I mean, that's a huge amount of quantity that we can get as advocates, where you're reaching so much more than just your community. And so that's a really big asset that I think about, you know, advocacy, is it's a quantity and a quality effect, where providing, you know, good resources and good information, but also how far does that message spread? Does anybody want to share any personal, you know, school ideas that you guys have used for advocacy and how it has helped, or maybe how it didn't go as well as you wanted it to go, and how you may be able to make it better? Anybody want to share any of that?
I'm actually going to call somebody out, because I like to do that, because I'm impatient, don't like waiting on people. So because I'm a North County St. Louis person, I see a lot of St. Louis in the house today. I'm actually going to start with Shaylee Dahl, who is teaching hybrid. So what are ways you advocate?
Yeah, so I'm actually new to St. Louis and Missouri, and I'm a first-year teacher. So this has been an interesting year. A huge way that I'm advocating right now, I have a lot of ideas. I haven't put a lot into motion, because hybrid, we were virtual at the beginning, now we're hybrid. We go back virtual sometimes. We're kind of back and forth a lot. But one way that I would say that I have been advocating is with family connection. So when half my kids are at home, half my kids are in person, I'm teaching both at the same time. I have a lot of younger siblings and older siblings joining my class and doing the activities with us. So I would say that's one way, just that family connection piece. I welcome them into my class. You know, as long as they're not supposed to be doing something else at that time, school-wise, they're welcome to participate with us. So that's one way for now.
I think that's pretty cool, you know, hitting what, like you said, that family engagement piece, but showing that you're human, you know, being vulnerable in the way that you have your family there and you bring them in, so kids and parents feel comfortable, if they're looking over their shoulder, actually show their face and be involved. So that's actually a pretty cool way to promote.
And I have a few parents that join us as well, which is, you know, kind of interesting and different than what we're probably used to, you know, compared to normal school, but it's cool to see them join us. So
I love that. And, you know, a really good addition with that kind of stuff is when I've spoken with teachers about doing the at-home kind of parent-included homework, so to speak, I always make sure that's one of their more cognitive-based assignments, or, you know, whatever it might be, because then you get that aha moment of parents saying, "Oh my gosh, you're learning this in PE? I thought it was just you were playing," you know. And so it's you turn those parents from, you know, that kind of unknowing into, they're a huge advocate now because they're learning about how to keep their heart healthy, how, you know, how to monitor their physical, you know, things like that are really important. And not to mention, it's really funny watching parents do like a push-up challenge, and they're, you know, having a son versus father push-up challenge is some of the best assignments you can watch. So Shaylee, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'll go one. Do you have anything else, Shaylee? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Drew, go ahead. Oh,
I just said thank you.
okay, yeah.
I just said thank you. That's all.
I'm going to start picking on people that I can see faces. Brent, do you want to share with us? I see your face sitting there, and I'd love to hear if you have anything to share with the group.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Sorry. It's been a little, this is my first year at this school district. I'll kind of give you some of the things I've did before, because we can't do too much because we're just in person, so we're a little limited. I used to have, well, and I'll start next year when we're allowed. We had morning intramurals at my last district, and then we always had a walk to school day Wednesdays. It was a little different district, so the kids would just show up earlier and we'd walk the track for 20-30 minutes. And then on like Tuesday, Thursdays, we'd do intramural activities from 7 to 7:45. Because right now I see the kids once a week. With the younger kids, we split halfway through, so I see them a little more often. So we were trying to get just parents coming in, bringing them in, and then I do athlete of the quarter for the district at each grade level, just and with a little game that we just kind of cheer on during assembly. Again, a lot of this is kind of different right now, just kind of based on the social distancing and how we're situated. But those are just a few things I've done, and I'll incorporate that at my new district as well. And we kind of online we share. I do a lot with Open Phys Ed and MoShape and stuff like that. So
Great.
those are just a few of the things I do.
Awesome. Okay. The only other face I see is Sarah up in Grandview. Sarah, do you have any shared advocacy you can give us?
Similar. It's my first year back. I took, 7 years off. Came back to the same district. We recently got our high school kids back, I guess about a month ago. But it's few and far between. I had 2 girls in my class today. So it's in between like 2 to 8 kids that we get, and then we Zoom with them a couple times a week. This week we decided that we don't like winter, so we're doing summer in December. Did some green screen action videos for them that we emailed out to them and parents, just reminding them to come to Zoom yesterday. And then they took a picture of us yesterday morning because we were in wetsuits at breakfast. And then so that was used Twitter for that and got that out there. So we worked on surfing yesterday. So we're trying to be a little innovative. Teachers were asking a lot of questions. How the heck are you doing surfing? So a lot of YouTube. But it was interesting. It was fun. The kids were really confused at what we were doing, but you know, they're high school, but they're kids at heart too. So I guess my cohort had a meeting with our superintendent yesterday for the wellness committee, and he mentioned several times surfing in their meeting. So he saw that Twitter post. So social media, I guess, definitely does help. So
yeah, that's awesome. I've always, you know, my time in the classroom, whenever I had what I would consider a strange unit, you know, where you're doing something that's a little off the beaten path, that's always a time where I want to get an administrator in there, you know, get some awareness. It's, you know, it's not just we're playing basketball, you know, that's, you know, which can be a great unit, but it's things outside the box and really seeing us be creative and be our own, you know, that's a really good advocacy piece of, how are we connecting our teaching to unique learning opportunities? And, I for one, am new to Missouri. I came from the West Coast from California, where surfing very common. Missouri, I don't know this for sure, but I would guess surfing is not as big here as it is in California.
No.
But it's amazing, being creative and making that push to provide those things is amazing. And then that's that great huge step. And then that second step is making sure that social media outreach and that advocacy of, hey, we're doing these great things. How many people can we let know that we're doing these great things? How can we outreach that? And because then the more we do that, the more that spreads, and then more people will do that. And that's awesome. That's a really cool. I'd love to see some video footage of surfing in Missouri. I'd love to see how that goes.
You have
Yeah.
to trade your surfboard for a bow and arrow.
Well, we did just pop-ups. That's what we worked on, so kids had to have their imaginary surfboard. And then, it's basically half a burpee. So it takes a lot of skill and stuff. And so, it was interesting, but it definitely got the kids talking at breakfast of, what are you doing in PE? Wait, I want to go to PE. And even some teachers were like, I don't understand. How are you doing that? I don't understand. And we also use Sworkit, the website Sworkit. We were able to get like 1,000 memberships for staff and students this year for free. So in addition to, like today, their assignment is to do a surfing conditioning workout via Sworkit, and they do a video reflection on that. So the whole week we're doing swimming and surfing, and we offer that again to staff as well. So that's another way for us to say, hey, staff, like this is an available resource for you to be active. So we sent that out, at the beginning of the semester, but sharing that aspect with our staff too.
For some reason, I just imagine surfboards being attached to the back of a Bosu ball and trying to bounce.
And then we did not do that. Sorry.
That's what lawsuits look like.
Yeah.
That's great. Anybody else on here that would love to share? These are all great ideas. Brad, can I put you on the spot? You want to give us something?
Sure. I would just add that it's important to reflect on who might be someone that would be making a decision or in control of funding or in control of a decision that would affect policy, that would affect your day-to-day, and just build those relationships. Be intentional about those relationships, because you don't want to wait until those decisions come up to advocate. You want that advocation to become a relationship building process from the beginning. So just kind of consider who those people are within your district, within your community, who might affect policy that affects you and who might affect funding that affects you, and just work on building those relationships now. That way, when that decision comes or that funding is needed, you've already built that relationship, and that's advocacy in action to me.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. And there's so many different avenues of advocacy, whether it's internal, external. If we're trying to advocate for ourselves with our board or our administrators to receive resources or support or time with our kids, that starts from that level in advocating and being able to show how important it is and whatnot. And then there's that external, where we're advocating for the community and showing parents and farther let that ripple go of, this is what we're doing. This is how we are helping this, especially like Sean was saying earlier on, especially in pandemic and COVID, how our subject, I would argue, I don't know if I have to argue it, that is gone from kind of the background to the forefront of importance in education, based on health and wellness and what we're able to provide our students, and, working through just, a health crisis like this, and how that WISC model and advocacy and our curriculums can really shift and mold to help, and advocate for that education and that health and that wellness and that just whole child approach. And, so I think there are so many avenues of advocacy. We could spend a whole series talking about advocacy in different aspects. And I think we got a lot covered in one hour session, which I'm grateful for. I know we all have busy schedules. I'm gonna plug again. I would love if you guys fill out that evaluation. It really helps us, kind of know how we're doing, see what you guys want to learn about, how, there's so much PD going on right now. And I'm sure when you guys got emails of 7 or 8 more PDs, half the people were just kind of, oh, geez, there's more professional development. So we're really trying to focus on pertinent information, how to implement some of these ideas, and really taking some of those resources and putting them into practice, and really seeing how we can use resources to impact what we're doing. And it shows a lot by you guys being here. It's really, it's good to see all of you, and there are a lot of educators out here that are taking time out of their day to be better. And so I want to thank you guys for coming. I want to thank Sean for presenting. Sean will be with us for a few more episodes. I try and take advantage of him as much as I can and use that brain to its fullest extent and for my benefit. So I want to thank Sean for lending his expertise once again and being here, and good to see the rest of you. But if you guys, I will stay on. If anybody has any questions they didn't want to address the group and has any individual, Sean and I can hang out for a few minutes. But other than that, if there's no more questions, I will hopefully see you guys on another episode of this, and look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Sean, are the next couple all at 4 p.m. on Fridays, or do we have another one at 9?